America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Nelson.
Here.
Robert Hammond.
Here.
Larry Sear.
Here.
Venus Shade.
Here.
Jim Still.
Here.
Aaron Wilson.
Here.
Bill Wilson.
Here. Anybody have anything they want to bring before council before we start with the regular menu?
You're good, Mark. Yeah, you can come on.
Go.
Hi again, everybody. Again, I'm Mark Felici with the County Planning Office. I see that you have an item later on your agenda under legal matters, which I'm not necessarily going to get into, other than the fact just to say that building off of what I mentioned in the last month's meeting is that we are actively and aggressively trying to move forward into the bidding phase of the River Trail project. We actually have in paper the easements, so there is a joinder consent agreement that I have a solicitor to talk to you about in a moment. But I felt that I'll just take just a quick moment of your time just to say that, you know, certainly as we look at that particular trail, which again, to remind you, it would pick up off of where the Rothermel Trail terminates, which is basically behind where the south of the Dairy Queen is, and continue westward to where the State Fire Academy and the Lowe's property line ends, to extend it that 3/4 of a mile, which it is at now, another half a mile, to make it a mile and a quarter, to build into other pieces, for example, the Victory Park, the downtown connector, and the Fish Riverwalk. I talked about a loop connecting the rec park, which would be as much as 3 miles. So we're pretty excited about opportunities to have things like 5Ks potentially at some point in the future, but aside from that, certainly there's other things to look at. I know this was something that was presented to council about 3 years ago, that the county was working with the rec council as well as members of the borough to look at a feasibility study that would also connect Victory Park then to the Stone Arch Bridge, and also show the connection of Rec Park, Kish Park, and Berry Township. So we've been actively looking at what is the actual feasibility of making those things happen. To make a long story short, we had an opportunity to develop our very first countywide action plan, which was required by the state to have a watershed implementation plan for all the key watersheds throughout the Commonwealth, namely the Chesapeake Bay watershed, which is you're seeing a lot of demands from Maryland and the EPA to see some of those water cleanup efforts being moved forward. So with that said, the state government had put some dollars forward to allow states to hire a countywide action planner to develop countywide action plans through all the different counties in that particular watershed. Obviously, Mifflin County would be entirely within the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So we actually partnered with Juniata, Perry, and Dauphin County to develop our very first countywide action plan, which allowed us to have dollars to hire HRG, an engineering firm, to do some detailed analysis as to how we can do some water cleanup efforts and some agricultural runoff cleanup throughout the county. We've been partnered very closely with the County Conservation District and working with Trevor Weaver there. There's a lot of good efforts that are already moving forward at the Conservation District level. But one thing the Conservation District has never been successful is managing urban stormwater. And knowing that this is the borough seat and seeing that we do obviously have stormwater concerns continually, particularly when in these high water events, what better place to looking at implementing stormwater improvements than looking at the southern end of the town, which is where you have the majority of from the river to the main street being in the floodplain. So knowing that that is where water naturally wants to funnel in a storm event, how can you aggressively use some of those lands potentially for stormwater improvements, knowing that there are certain things that are limited to being able to be done in the floodplain, but knowing that there are opportunities to further develop certain parcels along that area that can't otherwise be developed because of the concerns about the floodplain and floodwaters. So one thing that we had done with HRG is they actually had written us basically what we would call a white paper. It's an 11-page document. This is a map that is referenced in the document, and basically, what you'll see there is a connection of Victory Park down to the Stern Arch Bridge. One thing that you'll see in other communities throughout the Commonwealth is that the DEP has permitting requirements for certain communities of certain densities called MS4 requirements, which is municipal separated storm separated storm sewer systems, excuse me. And while Lewistown does not have the population density or the population to have an MS4 permit requirement, there potentially could be MS4 permit requirements coming down the pike. So while dollars are available potentially to handle some of these stormwater efforts, I'm actively trying to look at ways that we potentially bring dollars to bear to make some of these improvements that we could potentially in the future count as credit against some of the things that permitting requirements would have. One thing that you see under an MS4 permit requirement is the quality of the stormwater. This is something that Lewistown does not currently have to worry about. You just basically have to worry about collection and detainment more so than you have to worry about the water quality. So what you'll see that the engineering firm has presented is knowing that we have had an opportunity to look at connecting Victory Park down to the Stone Arch Bridge. There are some borough-owned properties, there are some other properties that currently have some wooded areas, certain areas that have already some stormwater concerns. So how can you implement that and incorporate that with potentially a trail development? So knowing that there could potentially be dollars to do the stormwater piece, I come to you today because HRG had offered to be able to sit down and meet with you and talk about this particular report in more detail, see if this is something that the council and the town would be interested in moving forward and actually aggressively seeking grant funds to do some of these pieces. So we're kind of at a crossroads at this point. Certainly there are numerous grant sources to be able to do some of these things that are listed in the report. The report itself lists various different grant sources. But knowing that we're trying to aggressively look at doing things before you're necessarily required to do that, that's when you potentially have an opportunity to bring grant dollars to bear. So I could speak about that at much more length, and I don't intend to do that today.
Yeah, you don't need to do that, Mark, we're good.
So again, the engineer had made themselves available to potentially meet, so I don't know if you would at some point be interested in.
Are you talking about, what's her name? The one that was in your meeting?
Aaron Lepavic.
Michelle?
No, that's actually a different project. Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Michelle, actually, just to reference what Kim is referencing, we are currently also developing our very first active transportation plan, which was done by Deanna Fleming, which Michelle works for. Deanna Fleming.
That's what I thought you were referring to.
Again, there's a lot of potential opportunities, and there's no sense necessarily moving these things forward if you don't see their value in this. But I at least wanted to present you that opportunity. Here's a first look at some of the things that they have presented, and certainly I would ask him to share some of these documents with you going forward. But if the engineering firm is willing to come meet with us, I figure I would have an opportunity to present that to you. See
What do you need us
to
to do that?
Just,
No,
if that's, sure, yeah, and I can obviously connect with Kim, maybe find a
Yeah,
date or a
that's
time.
I'll take time. Because I see, like, you got the proposed building platform here. Where that's located, the only thing you're gonna do from there is all the garbage and junk that's backed up against the river we're trying to get removed. So there's nothing to do there. The proposed fishing platform is possible, that's on borough property up there. Every time we get a heavy rain, that'll be underwater, it's a solid thing, it's not gonna wash away. We can talk about that. Okay. Yeah, have her get a hold of me, we can sit down and chat, that's fine, Mark.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
So the last time Mark was here, you discussed, I believe, the fact that these easements need to be relocated. The county got easements from the state for the fire academy and from the Juniata Concrete back in 19 or 20. They're actually already recorded. He's presented us with documents whereby the borough would agree to relocation of these easements, which is needed because of, I guess, stormwater stuff.
We have found wetlands in the location where we're going to maintain the trail, but in this case, we're trying to basically go around where the wetlands are so we don't have to disturb them.
So, I mean, they're short documents, we reviewed them prior to the meeting, and we recommend council enter into the cooperation agreement for the relocation of the easements. We'll get to that, but if you have any questions about it.
Now, that easement is for Michelle's project or the other project?
No, this would actually be for the
This project.
the second phase of the river trail, the Riverwalk project, yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Then when we get to that, then we can vote on it then.
Okay.
Then need to show anything else for you? You good?
Good, thank you for your time.
All right.
Anyone else have anything to bring before council right now? Okay, we need a motion for accept the consent agenda.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion made, properly second, question. All those in favor, give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. For our manager's report.
Just a few things, I'll go through these rather quickly. 22 Ridge Street, GNR has received a notice to proceed. They're just looking at the weather, but they plan on starting the demolition of 22 Ridge next week. Catherine Walnut Park update, same thing, the vendor for the playground equipment is supposed to be on site on Monday. And our guys will meet him up there, and they're supposed to start installing that equipment next week. Delinquent taxes, I'm waiting until Erin comes back. She's only open on Thursdays. Once she gets back, we'll get some more information on that, so I'm not gonna put anything out about that now. Community pool study, we're still doing a study with DCNR on our pool. It's still in play. I'm actually adding more data this week for them, and then we'll probably have the RFP out sometime in the next 30 days or so. And that should be done by sometime this summer. It depends on how long and how in-depth they decide to go or we decide to go. There is an option of delaying it, or I should say extending it 1 year through 2024. We're not looking at doing that yet, but that is the option. One of the things they will study during this analysis is the feasibility of having a pool for the borough, and what things we can do to upgrade the pool. What are the different options the borough has to make it more enjoyable for the citizens to use. Southside paving project, our engineers is working on that heavily. They're working on an RFP right now. They've already had the elevation certificates work for down along the ADA ramps and to getting the design put together. So that's still in focus for 2023. And basically that'll finish the ADA ramps and all the paving on the south side of town. Town hall meeting 2023, that is still scheduled for 26 January. We haven't set a time yet. So I think what we need to decide is, do we have it on 26 January, move forward on 26 January, or would you like to extend it a few weeks to give some more time for input? So that's just what I need for you. I've already talked to Matt. Matt has the equipment. We can rent from him for the presentation down there, which is the speakers and the projectors and that kind of stuff. So if you guys want to have it on the 26th, or would you like to wait a few more weeks to get some more information put together on it? We kind of advertised it as a 26th, but not officially. We never put it anywhere. I don't think we put it on the website or anything.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So it was internal discussion. I would like to move it to February because I've been swamped with a bunch of other stuff. And I'd like to put a good product together for you guys. I'd like to move it to February sometime, middle of February. But that's up to you guys, what do you guys want to do?
What are you thinking in February?
Hold on, let me get that. Matt said he can't do it the 9th. Was it 9th, Matt?
Correct.
Yeah, so I'm looking at sometime like between the 20th and 24th, the last week. I don't want to do it a council meeting week. We can do it council meeting week after, but that ties me up with the whole week beforehand, get ready for the council meeting. So I'd like to do it from the 20th to the 24th. Any time in there is fine. You can do it the 23rd. That'd be a good night. That's a Thursday night.
I think Matt said
Suits me.
24th would be okay if you.
23rd.
The 23rd?
23rd is fine.
24th is a Friday. You want to do it?
Okay.
You could, I mean, it's
Yeah,
up to you.
we don't want to do it on Friday.
So the 23rd, if Matt can support it, I recommend we just go with the 23rd, give us another month to prepare, because I know Chief, who's one of the main players, I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to him yet. You
What
know,
time?
What's that?
What time?
I want to do it 1800, but it depends. Some of the council want to do it earlier, some want to do it later. I'm thinking around 1800s, so that people will have time to go and eat and then come to the meeting at 1800. Some people said 1900, but I'd like to do it at 1800. 6 o'clock at night, sorry, 6 o'clock at night.
Works for me.
It'd be a good time to have it. People off work and.
Right. So we'll schedule for 23 Feb at 6 PM. You guys don't have to vote on it, it's fine, I just need to know if that's what you guys want to do, and we'll advertise it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll get it set up, I'll start putting some slides together, pass it out to you guys for review, and we'll start getting some data put together for you. basically we're gonna look at what's happening in the borough, what's the future plans coming forward, like the grants we're applying for, trying to clean out the river, county projects that I'll talk to Mark about, the fire department issues, you know, just what we need, what they need, kind of just filling in the citizens what's going on in the borough. And that's it. That's the fire chief.
Okay, fire chief.
Well, we're gonna have a question, can the audience ask questions?
Oh, yes, yeah, that's it, it's
Yeah.
a free, yeah, they can ask questions and all that stuff, yes.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, thank you. In the month of December, the fire department responded to 27 alarms. We had a building fire, 2 cooking fires, furnace malfunction, medical assist with EMS, 4 motor vehicle accidents with injuries, 1 pedestrian hit by a vehicle. We had 2 gas leaks. We had an oil spill in a residential basement, which we cleaned up. We had a lockout. We had 3 public service, an odor of smoke in the area, sprinkler system activation due to malfunction. That was out in Mifflin County High School when they had broken pipes. We went out and helped them out, clean the place up. And 8 automatic alarms. That was the runs for the month of December. As everybody knows, yesterday we ran into a major fire down in West Charles Street at 9:02 a.m. We was dispatched to 1315 West Charles Street. It was reported by a police officer that was coming by. He saw a flame shooting out. Police officer and a passerby who had his firefighting experience made an attempt to make entry, which they weren't able to at that time, but they did verify that everybody was out of the building, so that gave us a heads up there that we didn't have entrapment in the building. Things got pretty bad down there. On my arrival, my assistant chief's arrival, we had fire blowing out front of the building. First piece of equipment pulled in about 3 minutes later, followed by a couple engines. To everything was said and done, 11 adults was displaced and 3 young children. The Red Cross came down, met up with them, they made arrangements for them to have places to stay. Sadly to say, we did lose 2 dogs in the fire that we couldn't get to. But county mutual aid we put to use, we had approximately 14 different fire companies throughout the county there. At one time, we had about 65 firefighting personnel. We had to use a ladder pipe operation down there. We went to the defense mode because floors started to fall in, roofs started to collapse. So we had to pull the guys out of the building. So what we done at that time, we used United's ladder truck, Barnum's ladder truck, and Junction's ladder truck. Surrounded the building, done what we call surround and drown. We didn't permit entry, everybody was outside the building, and we dispelled the water line. As sad as it is to say it, this happened, I am rather pleased with the outcome of it. We was able to hold the fire down to the original fire building. There was moderate major damage done to 17 West Charles Street, but that can be repaired. But the outcome turned out as good as possible under the circumstances. Okay?
Thank you.
Hey, Chief, excellent job on that fire, you did a great job on that. I wish you could have saved the dogs, but it is what it is.
Mayor,
Hey, real quick, hey, Chief, when you say a lockout, what does that mean?
We carry a lockout kit in some of the fire equipment. People have a habit of maybe going in the store, locking their kids in the locking their kids in the vehicles, dogs in the vehicles, and etc. So we do have a kit that we can open that for them and request a donation.
Okay, cool.
But mostly it's kids that's lock the vehicle. They'll leave the kid in the vehicle, they get to play around, push the lock button down. And that's all run through the 911 system too, it's documented.
Thanks, Chief.
no report, okay. Police chief,
Okay, I have an annual report here for 2022. I think Tim has it up. Put it up on the thing think this was sent out to all council members too prior, so I don't know if you had a chance to look over it or not, but put some of the highlights, and if anybody's interested in a copy of it, I'll certainly provide that. Calls for service, for 2022, we had 6,554, and that was an increase of 879 over the previous year. 111 criminal arrests, and I broke those down there. 422 traffic citations issued, 187 non-traffic, 4,744 parking tickets, and 198 traffic crashes investigated in 2022. We did apply for 2 grants at the end of last year, and we received word that we were approved for both of those. So one is law enforcement support grant for $306,882, and that's for new technology equipment, new laptops in the cars, license plate readers, a new records management system, and then also money for the mental health co-responder program and our therapy health program. And the other grant we received was for medical marijuana enforcement, and that's to train a new drug recognition expert for DUI enforcement. And covers all the training costs for that, plus any overtime we would have as a result of that, covering shifts for that training, and travel expenses. And that was $46,221 for that one. Just put in there a summary of the vehicles we have, where we're at with our fleet, the mileage and all the vehicles. Continue our mental health co-responder program. Had over 400 referrals this year, so we continue that program as well. Training for the officers, average of 45 hours per officer last year. I think the total number was 761 hours of training. And that was in addition to their required 12 hours per year, so that's above and beyond what they're required every year. Hosted 2 interns for parking enforcement over the summer. They continued into the fall as well. We continue to work toward accreditation, and we're hoping we can complete that by the end of this year. Listed some of the community service events we had throughout the year: National Night Out, Trunk or Treat, Shop with a Cop, Fill a Cruiser, and we also delivered Christmas meals on the Granville United Methodist Church. We collected over 432 pounds of unwanted prescription medications through our drug take-back box that we had in our lobby down there. So it's quite a bit for a year. And at the end there is just a breakdown of our current roster, what we have in the department as of now. We will plan on doing civil service testing early this year to establish a new hiring list. So
Right now, you don't have any part-time officers, right?
we have none. We're still looking to maybe hire 2 part-time officers, but we have not come up with anybody for that yet. So, that's a summary of what we did last year and some things we're looking forward to working on this year. If there are any questions, glad to answer.
Chief, what's the accreditation that we're working towards?
It's through the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association, so it's a state accreditation. So, what it is they have 141 different standards. They examine your policies and they come in and actually do an assessment of your policies and check to make sure you're following your policies and procedures. And you have to meet all those standards in order to become accredited. So it just assures that you're following the best practices. It's, it's good for the professionalism of the department, for liability purposes, shows that we're doing things in a professional manner. So
Would it help us get grants, possibly?
possibly, yeah. It may also reduce our insurance, liability insurance, which we can check on as well.
Any other questions for the police chief? Borough Solicitor.
As we discussed a couple minutes ago, there's two agreements for the borough to enter into with the county regarding the relocation of the concrete plant easement and the fire academy easement. As I said, they've been reviewed, and we would recommend that you adopt or authorize the appropriate officers to enter into those joint consents.
Council's wishes.
I make a motion.
Second.
Motion made properly second. Questions? All those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Unfinished business. I'll get through that, yeah.
Handicap parking space request. We do have one request for a handicap parking. I got the information here. And this is for a place in Montgomery. I'm not gonna give a name or, the health reason, HIPAA stuff, but, bottom line is, this house here, it's down here where this white truck is, and I'll get to that. So this is the nearest handicap spot. It's down the far end of the road.
Is it being used?
Yeah, I was told the neighbor do use it. This is the house in question this lady would like to have in front of her house. This is the back behind her house is over here on the left. I'll show you another picture. So she has parking in the back. It's back behind this house. So she could park here, and maybe she'd clean up her trash, she'd have a way to get through there. Same, you got the room back over here. Again, if there's nothing here, we could put a spot in the front. She says it's too far to walk with her health issue. So the question is, does the council want to approve putting a handicap space in that spot? She does have an approved handicap placard. It costs the borough about $500 to put a handicap sign in, and she pays a fee of $25, which she paid.
Council's wishes.
Make a motion that we do that.
I'll second.
Motion made properly second. Questions? All those in favor give their consent by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So carried.
All right, workman position. We'll get to that after we talk executive session. Let's talk about different positions and stuff, so we'll get to that. Parking enforcement 2023. As Dave mentioned earlier, usually we have a parking enforcement officer starting the new year, and he does have, is it Matty? One of them, how many hours do they want to work, how many days?
Well, if we're gonna do it for the winter, I was gonna suggest 20 hours a week instead of 30.
Oh, that's fine.
That's up to council.
Yeah.
If
So-
they want.
yeah.
She's willing to do it.
So
At
she
least
would
the
be our
last I
parking,
talked to
yeah,
her, I would
yeah.
have to reach out again.
Yeah, she'd be our parking enforcement person, and then obviously my next meeting, I think, is next month with parking authority, but they always agree to pay half. So the bottom line is, do we want to hire somebody for parking enforcement?
When would she start? What are we talking here?
It's like Susan, then probably next week, week after, it's soon. It's
And
soon.
how long is she planning to work?
She goes, first she's applying for the academy, which starts in July, so she's working this.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion made properly second. Questions? All those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carries.
All right, the next thing on the agenda, get this. Mifflin County Tax Collection Committee vacancy. There's a vacancy on that committee that the borough needs to fill. And our secondary person is Frank Barrier. Our primary position is empty. And it's usually held by the township supervisors. Like Kelly does hers, Mary does hers. So I've already talked to the personnel committee about just assigning me to the position as the borough manager. And I'll attend the meetings, it's like twice a year, so.
It's yours.
Anybody have any objections to him joining?
No, I'm on too many boards now.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, you got it.
Just put down 2 names.
That was a really quick one.
Thanks, Pete.
I'm just gonna stop you there, no need to continue.
All right. Hey, there's one more
There
thing.
wouldn't be a problem.
There's one more thing on here I forgot to put on there, but we have to vote to discuss it. And we talked about it at the fire committee meeting, 'cause I don't know how I forgot to miss this, but I did miss it. But we have to fix the boiler at Brooklyn, so we need a vote to discuss fixing the boiler at Brooklyn Firehouse.
I make a motion to discuss it.
Second.
Motion made, properly second, question. All those in favor, give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Okay, so the boiler is inoperable, but we had the main boiler company come in and look at it. The estimate for repair is $7,556. A lot of the parts are warped and cracked, but with that, they can get it working for Brooklyn. And they said it could last up to 2 years for the repair. At this point, I talked to Eads today about doing an assessment down there. Do we go to gas or do we go with the boiler again? It's probably gonna be gas. But the point is, they need heat at least for the next 2 years until this whole process works its way through and how we do it. So I need approval for $7,556 from ARPA money to fix the boiler at Brooklyn Firehouse, Brooklyn United. Because by the way, that merger did get approved, so now, right now, it's Brooklyn United.
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion made, properly second, questions?
To replace the boiler, they're getting a quote now. They said it takes up to 2 years right now to get a boiler. So that, they said they got companies right now that have been waiting 18 months and there's nothing in sight, so that's why.
All those in favor, give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
All right, and that's the last thing I had except for executive session.
Anybody have anything else you want to bring before council before we go into executive session?
I'd like to make a motion, we restructure the executive.
Alright.
Do we need a second for that?
I guess what you should really do is motion to amend the agenda to discuss it. It's not an
I'd like to make a motion to discuss restructure the executive.
Second.
Motion made, properly second, questions? All those in favor, give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd like to nominate Jim Steele for president.
Motion made to nominate Jim Steele for president. Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Heavy.
Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, got Jim Steele and myself.
I think
Yeah, I never
Jim
heard
Steele was
that.
nominated,
Yeah,
Jim Steele was nominated first, so you go.
Right, so you just do
So you get a
a
majority
motion,
vote. Yeah.
motion to,
Make a motion for Jim Steele.
approve,
Okay.
Steele as president.
Motion for Jim Steele. All those in favor, raise your hands.
So we do a roll call? or-
Roll call?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, you might as
do roll
well.
call.
That's
Roll
what I
call.
thought, okay.
need a second or not?
No, you don't need a second on nominations.
So do roll call for Jim Steele.
Robert Hammond,
Yes.
Nelson Repanak,
No.
Gina Shea,
Yes.
Aaron Wilson,
Yes.
Bill Wilson. Okay, that's 3-2. Wait, I'm sorry, Claire Sarah.
No.
And then that would be tied. That would go to the mayor, because Jim would abstain, right?
Yeah,
because
he doesn't vote for
Right.
himself.
Say yes.
4-3-4.
Okay. And we get down to vice president?
Because Jim is the vice president.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so we have to-
Yeah,
You can't hold two votes.
I nominate Bobby Hammond.
Any other motions?
I nominate Aaron Wilson.
Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Heavy.
Any other nominations?
just gonna vote for Aaron if they came to me. Can I say no? Can I refuse it?
No.
I refuse it, I don't really wanna do it.
So the next person you brought up was Aaron.
Aaron.
And then
Robert Hammond,
I'm voting for Aaron, is that right?
Right.
You're voting for
Aaron.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Wilson.
Nelson Reefenack,
No.
Larry Sear,
No.
Dina Shade,
Yes.
Jim Still,
Yes.
Aaron would abstain, Bill Wilson. That would go to the mayor.
Knocking
Good thing you're here tonight, Mayor.
Aren't you glad you came down there?
Yeah.
You had a rough day.
I know.
Yes.
4 to 3, 4.
Okay.
So Aaron is the vice president.
Okay. Jim, you wanna take over now and?
Yeah, we can take over now.
And then we'll do the executive session time.
Any public comment before we go to executive session? Let's go to executive session right now. We have some things to vote on.
Make a motion that we, select the candidate for the workman's position as interviewed.
All in favor? Second, need a roll call.
And send it out.
So the voting on the working position hiring.
That's what I have, we need a roll call. Okay.
Robert Hammond,
Yes.
Nelson Reefenack,
Yes.
Larry Sear,
Yeah.
Dina Shade,
Yes.
Jim Still,
Yeah.
Aaron Wilson,
Yes.
Bill Wilson.
Yes.
Make a motion that we hire the selected candidate for the masonry position for the borough.
Once it's open.
Once it's open, I'm sorry.
Second.
Roll call?
Robert Hammond,
Yes.
Nelson Reefenack,
Yes.
Larry Sear,
Yeah.
Dina Shade,
Yes.
Jim Still,
Yeah.
Aaron Wilson,
Yes.
Bill Wilson.
Yes.
We have to have discussion on the real.
Make a motion to discuss the
Discuss.
incentive program for the
Yeah,
officer.
make a motion, we discuss the incentive program Dave told us about.
Second.
Roll call? All in favor? Roll call? I don't know.
You can
Just
go
do
all
all
in favor.
Yeah, it's fine. Say all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Yeah.
You wanna tell us about it again, Chief, so it's on the record?
Yeah, we're, like I said earlier in the meeting, we're planning to test again, civil service testing early this year for officer positions for the police department. A lot of departments, including our own, are struggling to get applicants for those positions. So we need to come up with some type of incentives for attracting applicants. So my recommendation was that we consider paying or reimbursing applicants for their Act 120 certification, which is, right now, the current cost is around $5,700 for their tuition. So that would be an incentive for them to apply for our department and to work here, and we would have some kind of contract with them that they would have to stay for a certain period of time in order to receive that. So just asking for council's permission to look into an incentive program to cover that cost and to come up with a contract that would address that.
Anything else before we adjourn?
I'm assuming that comes out of the police department's budget rather than general funds.
Yeah, we would have to look at putting money in the budget for that. I mean, obviously, we didn't do last year for this year's budget, but we'd have to look at where we could get that money from.
We would vote on the contract and what the.
Right, right,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, we could develop, we could develop a contract.
I feel that it should at least be 2 years.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
I
agree.
mean, rather
If not
than.
3, I mean, we'd have to look at what are we paying to
Right.
train these people, get them here.
Yeah.
We can discuss the details of the contract. My main thing for tonight and to get the approval is that we can advertise that we're considering that incentive. So that.
Yeah,
people-
considering it was not approved, but considering it.
Right.
And then the personnel committee can work on developing the contract and that stuff with the finance committee. Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Uh,
Opposed? Thank you. Meeting adjourned.